And then I said to my friend, I want another one, I don't feel anything. I think this is about 3 ecstasies. What I thought was going to be a fun night turned into the worst night of my whole life. He came to me afterwards and he was like, Connor, you're no different to me. You say you're a Christian, but you're not. You do the drugs, you do drinking, you're no different. And then something happened. I can't really explain it. Don't know how to explain it. I don't actually know what happened. I grew up on a tobacco farm out in the bush in Zimbabwe, and I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I grew up in a rather maybe spiritual home. I remember going to church a few times, not particularly enjoying it. I think we would go just for Easter and Christmas. But I also had a knowledge of sin. I knew that that I had offended him in some way, or it, and I remember specifically one time having just really bad thoughts and maybe doing some things that weren't good. And I remember falling on my knees in the bathroom and then just crying out for lightning to strike me, because I felt like that's what I deserved and what was owed to me. I knew I had offended a God, but I didn't know who he was or what he was. And this was about the age of 9, 10, which is quite interesting because I hadn't been taught about God. But everything changed when I went to high school. Towards the end of the academic year, there's a organization called Zambezi Holidays, run by someone called Craig Roberts, and he's a Christian, and he would teach us about God, about Jesus. That was the time when I really began to understand who Jesus was and who God was and what he had done for me. And at the end of that camp, I gave my life to Christ. But it was only later on that things began to change, because after that time, I would go back to my life and go back to my non-Christian family and friends. So my parents would end up getting a divorce. And so then I would begin to act out and misbehave. I had a year after leaving school where I just smoked a lot of weed, did a lot of drugs, did a lot of drinking, did all kinds of things that I thought were fun. But looking back, I can't say that they added anything to my life. I was quite lost, I guess. I didn't know where my life was going or anything. I had always wanted to work on super yachts. I think what attracted me was the money. You make a lot of money and you can travel the world. So what you needed to do is you needed to go to Cape Town and do a course. I got into the course and started doing everything. But in Cape Town, it's a different nightlife to Zimbabwe and to Harare. It's a lot crazier. I remember going one night, I remember taking some pills, and for me it was a really fun night. And then it was the end of the course, and now to celebrate, we all went back to the same club that I had the really fun night. I remember saying, like, I just wanted to replicate that night. And I remember taking these pills, and I remember taking some ecstasy, and I hadn't taken this ecstasy before. And then I remember just like waiting for it to kick in. And then I said to my friend, I want another one, I don't feel anything. And then he said, okay, sure. He gave me another one. I think this is about 3 ecstasies. And then I still didn't feel anything, but I don't think I waited. And then I took an MDMA as well. And then everything changed. What I thought was going to be a fun night turned into the worst night of my whole life. I was shaking and I was just panicking and really paranoid. But an epic sense of paranoia, one that just messes with your head and goes deep down. So it comes to the end of the night and we leave. And I remember just sitting in the bathtub. I'm still tripping because I think the police are coming to break in. I'm panicking. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was doing. I felt really lost. This paranoia and this overdose, it affected me for about 5 months, 4 or 5 months. I just wasn't the same. It was like I couldn't communicate with people anymore. Like something had really broken in me. And at this stage, I'm still smoking weed, I'm still drinking and not really seeking God or anything. And then something happened. I can't really explain it. I don't know how to explain it. I don't actually know what happened, but just one day, I remember thinking, I need to read my Bible. I just remember getting this overwhelming sense that I just need to read my Bible, and I just remember reading it, and just reading it and reading it and looking and searching in it, and finding all these amazing truths, and slowly things began to change. I began to change inside. And me and Travis would always be smoking weed and hanging out. And he came in one day because we were going to hang out, and then he had some weed and he just put it down on the table. But my Bible happened to be on the table where he put down the weed. So he put down the weed on my Bible. And then I was like, I reacted. I was like, bro, get that off my Bible. And then he just looked at me. He just stopped and he's like, bro, it's just a book. And I was like, no, it's not just a book, get that off, get it off it. I think we still ended up smoking the weed and having and doing all that kind of stuff. So you can get the sense of things was happening, but it was like a slow process. I had one friend from the camp who I went to a church, and I went there a few times. But during this year, I had started to think about moving to another country, and London always came to my mind. My mum had done it before, and we had family in London. Yeah, my last church service was a memorable one as well. I don't think, maybe Bex knew that I was leaving to London, but no one really else knew. The pastor, he stood up, after the worship song, and he said, there are a few people in this church where this will be the last time that they come to church, because they are going away to different places, to different countries. And he said, I want those people to stand up because we're going to pray for them. And I was amazed, and I stood up, and a few other people stood up, and people prayed for me. So I moved to London, and I started working within 3 days, working in events, setting up, breaking down events. Some things were still the same. I would be peer pressured into smoking weed every now and then, or taking drugs. From the outside, it looked like I was the same, but on the inside, I felt very different. I felt guilty and ashamed of what I was doing. And I remember one guy, he might remember this, and he came to me afterwards and he's like, Connor, you're no different to me. You say you're a Christian, but you're not. You do the drugs, you do drinking, you're no different. That struck me really hard, because I knew I was different, I knew I was saved, and that my heart really wanted to follow Jesus and be obedient to his word. I repented and turned away and just was like, I can't be doing this anymore. And that time of my life was the last time where I would smoke weed and I would do drugs. My church played a really key part in this. There were people there that I could share with and be open with, but also the teaching was really, really good. It really built me up, and being a young Christian, it was a really, really good time for me. Yeah, that's my story, I guess, from drugs to Jesus, and from hopelessness to hope and joy. There's a lot of people that know me and know the kinds of things that I've done, and you might think that, oh yeah, that's just Connor, he's the same guy. Hopefully if you see me, you might say, oh, there's something different. I want to say that the best thing that I ever did was read my Bible and choose to follow Jesus. Just looking back at that, it was a real, like a supernatural thing that happened. Honestly, it was the Holy Spirit in me that was just like, read the Bible. When I came back from Cape Town, it's just one of the things that like changed my life, and no one was there to tell me, to show me. It was just, I had the Bible and this urge to read it and And maybe if there's someone out there that has that same urge, and I'd say follow it and look for yourself at the amazing life of Jesus and the truth that he says and he speaks about. And honestly, choose to follow him and your life will change. It did for me. I'm a testimony to that, and it's the best thing that could ever happen to me, honestly.